Wizardry Online was an MMORPG created by Japanese developer Headlock, running on the Gamebryo engine and had every right to be successful in the West. However, due to SOE's poor advertising and misinterpretation of the game, then later dissolving to become Daybreak Games, Wizardry was lost before anyone could really experience it. Today I'm making this to best I can document mechanics this game offered and hopefully clear up any of the misconceptions there seems to be surrounding the game, and possibly inspired others to help us restore it for everyone to play again. Wizardry Online featured a well-done horror fantasy art style, with level of graphics being something like what you see between the PS2 and 3. The game could run on a mid-low-end computer with settings reduced without much of a problem. It's clear here they focused on the style of the art over something flashy that a stronger PC might demand. It contains tons of unique dungeons, all with their own distinct feel and look, along with tons of monsters, traps, treasures, and challenging puzzles. When diving in a dungeon, you'll eventually stumble upon these demon statues with a barrier of light just past it. Talk to the demon statue and you'll receive a task or riddle. When you complete it, you and any party members may enter the statue for an instance fight unique to that statue. When in, that barrier of light will be removed for you. Then you may progress deeper into the dungeon, but things will continue to grow more challenging and dangerous until you eventually clear the final demon statue that houses the boss of the dungeon. As you progress, you will continue to unlock more and more dungeons that frequently branch off from one another. It is even possible, while collecting treasure, to find these crystal shards with a name. If you gather enough of these shards with the same name, you can create an orb with that name that corresponds to a specific demon statue and would allow you and your party to have an attempt at fighting a legendary monster inside of a special instance. There is a couple of other types of monsters to mention besides these normal ones and legendary ones. There are rare creatures who may only have a single spawn point, monsters like the Scrooge Beetle in the first main dungeon, Caligraph's Sewers, or the floating ghost skull in Golden Dragon Ruins. Then there are purple aura monsters, also called unique creatures or notorious monsters. They are powerful monsters spewing purple energy and generally have pretty good drops. Also having the longest respawn times and unique spawn locations per each purple monster. The game has 5 different races and 3 different alignments that you may set for your character creation, but the alignment could change based on the decisions your character makes, generally related to quests. The alignments are lawful, neutral, and chaotic. Your alignment determines the color of your character's soul and can affect a number of things like how some quests might be carried out or how some skills may behave. Races are human, elf, porkle, gnome, and dwarf. Gnome is female only, while dwarf is male only and has some pretty fantastic beards. There are some non-essential spaces in the game that only Porkle can reach due to how tiny they are. I guess if another race really wanted to get into that place that only a tiny person could, it could theoretically be possible too. If you knew someone who knew Resurrection and also was a Porkle, and you trusted them enough, you could just die and then have them pick up your corpse and then carry it to where you're trying to go and then have them resurrect you. There is a secret tavern located deep inside a later dungeon, for example, that generally only Porkles may enter that you could check out this way. At the end of character creation, there's also a stat roll. You can roll any number between 1 and 70. The game has 7 stats you can distribute these points to. You can't add more than 10 points to any one stat, so rolling 70 would mean you'd be able to add 10 to every stat. You can re-roll from here as many times as you like. Generally speaking, I would say 1 is uncommon, 2 to 8 is common, 9 to 14 is uncommon, 15 to 29 is rare, and 30 to 70 is very rare. I found you can make a very optimal build depending on what you had in mind with like 20 to 30 points, no problem. I think it's probably a good time to start talking about the combat, and there's a lot to say here. To put it as simply and as in few words as possible, the combat is like a lot like what you would expect to see in a best case scenario of a Dark Souls MMORPG. All attacks must make visual contact to do anything, and each gender and race has different attack motions and hitboxes for every different type of weapon. For example, a human male is so good with a two-handed axe that under the correct circumstances, they could effectively axe lock a player or monster into the wall or a corner. While the reach may not be as long as something like an elf male, the motions are more smooth and consistent, and probably faster as well. Another example being the dagger. Dwarf probably has the fastest speed motion for it, but I've always preferred female elf. Between still having one of the fastest dagger motions in the game and having a much better reach, you could in the correct situation prevent a player from running away from you with dagger lock. OD is essentially stamina in this game, displayed as this green bar below your MP. Good management of this is vital to surviving. A well-placed dodge could be huge in changing the tide of a fight, but each time you perform one it'll consume 15 OD. Every few seconds you'll start to gain a small amount of OD back until you baseline at 100. You could build it quickly by landing hits. This will also allow you to pass 100 OD. The max OD you can have is 200. Most types of physical skills you can set on this hotkey bar. They generally consume about 20 through 50 OD per use. Sprinting and sprint jumping also consume OD. The combat here feels incredibly fair and truly justified when you die. Like, you saw what happened, and you can start formulating strategies around what to do in specific situations next time and actually do something about it. And part of what makes this combat so lush is from how the game chooses to handle their classes. Basically what we're looking at here is a long-term custom class building system, so everyone has different skills and a different way of fighting, and those differences only continue to grow more distinct as you progress. There are 4 basic classes you can choose from at character creation: Fighter, Mage, Priest, thief. There are also 4 advanced classes that are harder to achieve: Ninja, Samurai, Bishop, and a Lord. Each of these classes has skill trees with many options and choices of direction. When you have the resources necessary and you are ready, you can choose to change your class. This will reset your character level, but allow you to carry over a number of skill points you had spent previously over to your new class. The number of skill points you're allowed to carry over and the overall flexibility of your build is determined by soul rank. You increase soul rank by collecting soul points, and you gain these primarily through quests or mass EXP gain. For every 100 EXP you gain all at once, you also gain a single soul point. And it's really important to understand the differences between character level and experience versus soul rank and soul points. I'll give an example of an early build you could do. Starting at soul rank 5, you could class change and carry over up to 3 skills, but only 3 total points. You could have started on Priest and carried over 1 point in Divine Armor, a skill that negates flinch you would generally receive when being attacked, along with 2 points of Cure to Fighter. Then you would be a level 1 fighter who also can become immune to flinch and have an extra option when he wants to heal himself or an ally. You can always see the effects in play and the effect times on your character in the top left under your OD meter. You can also see any active effects a target has as well. player could also choose to wait until soul rank 6 instead. This would give them the same number of max skills that could be carried over, 3, but 6 total points instead. So this player could then instead choose to become something like a fighter who has 1 point in divine armor, 1 point in cure, and 4 points in passive defense. This same player could then level fighter for a while and then continue jumping from class to class until they have their dream build, all while progressing your soul rank, so in the future you'll have the potential to make more elaborate builds. The class you end your build on still must be decided carefully since it can influence a lot. Beyond each class having their own passive increases, very beneficial to things that the class would likely be using, it could also affect other things, like for an example, a fighter can use the most powerful physical weapons like two-handed swords and spears, and wear the most physically resistant armor in the game. Landing on Thief would allow you to use skills that don't directly deal damage while staying in stealth. Mage's magic attack is significantly higher, and most spells are determined by things mages excel in most of the time, like int. Also, being able to equip staffs give you the highest magic attack boost out of most weapons. However, mage does have spells like magic missile, which damage is determined primarily by physical attack, then strength, then int, and checks a target's physical defense rather than his magical defense. And priest is the supporter powerhouse, having access to tons of skills to aid allies or enfeeble opponents. I'm not going to go deep into detailing the hundreds of skills obtainable in the game here. I think the people who put the Wikia together did a fantastic job putting together a lot of data. I have included a link for anyone interested in the details of all the different skills. A lot of us would think for hours about different theoretical builds and fighting styles. Now I'm going to talk about some of the unique mechanics the game has, and how Headlock managed to incorporate them better than I've ever seen another MMORPG do before. When you die in this game, you enter soul form, and you must navigate your way back to the last resurrection statue that you've lit. Also, at the beginning of the dungeon, there is a resurrection statue that's always lit that you can use as well. While in soul form, you'll notice a lot of the colors have been sort of washed out and replaced with blues and whites. It looks a lot different. And there's no normal creatures, but instead you may encounter a Reaper, and if he sees you, he'll begin to dash at you quickly, and should you get touched by his scythe, you'll have to attempt the run all over again, starting from the location of your corpse. When you make it to a lit revival statue, you'll see this screen, and it'll have the percentage chance of you successfully reviving. This revival percentage can be determined by a few different things, mainly luck, and it can also be slightly reduced for each time that you're caught by a Reaper. I'd say generally, even if someone didn't prioritize luck at all on their build, this number for resurrection chance would look something like 90 to 95%. Sacrificing items or small amounts of gold can also fill out this percentage to 100 if you want. You could take it from 90% to 100% for practically nothing, just a matter of remembering and not neglecting it. Should you fail this resurrection, your corpse will turn into a pile of ash, and the world you see in soul form will lose even more color, now looking black and white. You'll still be at the resurrection statue that you have run to, and you'll have one more chance to revive yourself again, having all of the freedom of inserting as much items and as gold as you want to make it a sure thing. If you've looked at all through the skills that Mage has available to them, you may have noticed that there's no lightning-based skills, and that's because this game treats lightning as a very powerful thing. There are even traps in very later dungeons that, if they touch you, they have the potential of instantly turning you to a pile of ash. While this might sound a little bit scary to somebody who hasn't played before, anybody who played the game would probably be able to agree that this feature was far too lenient. And even from perma dying, you would lose your character and everything on him, but what you keep is far more valuable. First of all, your soul and everything related to it remains intact. So soul rank, dungeon progression, class change flexibility, it all stays. And second, your experience of the game would be greater at this point. You understand how to fight better, how to theorize better builds, and that's honestly the best tool you have in a game like this. A permadeath was honestly a really rare thing in this game. There was even a board in the center of town showing anybody who had passed away, and usually a permadeath served as some sort of a catalyst to spark a war between different unions. While the game does have its own main story that it follows, the bigger picture always felt like it was player driven and determined by the action and the choices of everyone playing. Like it or not, when you join a union, anyone can see the union name above your head and people will associate you with them and their actions and ways of thinking. The game does have true open PvP, allowing anyone who is soul rank 2 or greater to ask an NPC to remove a protection, letting them attack and be attacked anywhere by anyone else who has also had it removed. And it's not until after you clear the tutorial dungeon along with the first few major dungeons that you'll even be killing monsters giving you over 100 XP apiece. Under 100 XP at a time means no soul points outside of clearing quest. That means that there would be plenty of preparation before you even have the option of opening up open PvP. This game also has a very fleshed out criminal system. In the main segment of the primary town, there's guards patrolling everywhere. Think of them like a real-world version of Reapers that only targets criminal players. If he should touch you with his spear, it would almost certainly guarantee death. He will deal a random number above like 10k damage, ignoring all defense. To give perspective, someone with 1k through 2k HP is considered to have a ton of HP and is probably a fighter. This could be a challenge if you wanted to do anything in this section of town as a criminal player, like visiting the tavern for a food buff, or interacting with an NPC that manages your soul rank stuff, or trying to do class changes. If you commit a minor crime, like intentionally attacking a non-criminal player in a dungeon for 1 or 2 hits, or heal a criminal once or twice, you will turn yellow for 1 to 30 minutes depending on severity, and assuming you don't commit more crimes after becoming yellow. Anything beyond that, and you'll become red with a little blood splotch by your name. You would then probably be looking at about 7 to 25 hours of being logged in and alive and not committing crimes until it faded. If you keep committing crimes past this, eventually you'll get a skull over that red blotch by your name. That means you're in it deep, and if you ever planned on not being a criminal again, it would take at least 70 hours of being logged in and alive and not committing crimes. Killing any player would land you on their blacklist, and with this they can see the name of the zone you're in at any time, but not the channel you're in. They would also be able to place a bounty on you from the blacklist if they'd like. There are bounty boards in town you can always check too to see who are the most wanted criminals. And should you accumulate a bounty from 5 or more different people, you'll turn purple, signifying you're now eligible for a black aura. Black aura may only be possessed by 5 players at a time per server. You must have at least 5 active bounties, all from different players, and be within top 5 on bounty value in gold as well. If you're ever caught by a guard or killed by another player in dungeon, after you revive yourself as a purple or black aura player, you're transported straight to jail, and as a purple or black aura player, you can expect it to take a while to roll out of jail. At this point, anybody who looks at your name in their blacklist or on the bounty board can now see that you are imprisoned, and depending on how players feel about you, they may take time out of their schedule to come to the jail and use a switch to blow up everybody inside of the jail. The catch is they have to find out the channel that you're on. If a criminal had enough hate from enough people, they could make this process hell for the criminal and potentially permakill him under the correct circumstances should he have enough infamy with the community. Though I've never seen or heard of that happening before, it's definitely a possibility. Also, it's worth mentioning that if 48 hours go by and a new player does not place a bounty on a criminal who already has bounties, then all the bounties will vanish for that criminal. So you would probably need to be incredibly hated to even get to the point of receiving a black or purple aura. And it would have to be magnitudes worse to motivate a large enough group of players to come poach you while being imprisoned. It might sound like some of this setup could just be anarchy and a mess, but due to the nature of this game, and the way things are set up, that can't really ever be the case. It's pretty normal in like main areas of town for players to spar with each other, mostly criminals, and others will usually watch an interest and eventually maybe even start requesting to spar with other people themselves. This interest is usually stems from how deep the combat is, and the more time players spend polishing their own skill in this combat, the more they usually come to respect other people's abilities as well. Also, your actions carry direct consequences in this game. If you're running around basically being a jerk and preying on the weak, you can expect a bigger fish will soon emerge, putting your actions into check. You could even motivate other players to pursue you in dungeons should they grow to dislike you enough. Encountering another possibly hostile player in dungeon is always exciting as well. Due to how flexible the custom long-term class builds are, you never quite know what you're getting yourself into. Until you have experience fighting that individual, you have no clue how they're going to fight or what skills they might have. There's also a player looting system in place as well, though due to how it's set up, it would be very challenging to steal anything substantial. All items you find in dungeons, including things that you may be looking at on a dead player's bag, are unidentified, and it only says the type of item it is. Loot speed is mostly determined by the class you are, and how much the item you're trying to steal has been enhanced. Also, once the dead player attempts to revive at a resurrection statue, it will cancel any ongoing loot attempts. There are things criminal players could do to maximize looting opportunities, like getting the targeted player killed deeper in the dungeon just before touching an incoming resurrection statue, or if they got lucky and found a way to whittle down durability on a piece of the target's equipment. Then once it reaches 0, it's broken and it's not usable until repaired in town, and becomes very easy to loot, as a piece of equipment that had never been upgraded at all is the speed that it would be looted at. Some weapons have a higher value in this stat called hardens. This stat determines how quickly the weapon can deplete the durability of your target's equipment. Speaking from my few years playing to give a better perspective how much you might have to worry about being looted, in my earliest experiences playing during closed beta test, I had a pretty valuable at the time scale body armor stolen in a really elaborate trap he had got me caught up in, and even after all this time, I'm pretty sure I remember his name even though we've never spoken. I think his name was Grim. Then once again, about a year and a half in, looted by a porkle for a hat that wasn't particularly valuable to me, but I respect both of these people for having the skill to pull it off, since I know it's not easy. The game has a pretty brutal forging system as well to upgrade your equipment. You may insert 1 target gear, 1 support item, and up to 3 forging stones. There are varying levels of forging stones, each increasing in value and effectiveness. When placing items, it will reveal a line of text saying what your chances of success are going to be. Should you fail in an enhancement, the item will be destroyed unless you have a support item specifying otherwise. If you upgrade a weapon to +5, it will have a white glowing aura around it. +6 gets a gold aura. +7 gets a green. +8 is blue. +9 is red. And +10 is so rare that I don't think anybody has ever seen it before. Though it's probably expected to be black or an aura similar to purple monsters or black aura criminal players. I've seen a +9 maybe once or twice, and surely the curiosity of seeing a +10 drove them to destroy the weapon eventually. Besides equipment durability, there is also your character's condition. This can not only affect your character's current stats, but also what stats you get upon level ups. Each time your EXP meter fills, you must sleep somewhere to actually receive your level up. These stats are randomized and are only really affected by luck and condition. Sleeping at an actual inn gives you condition back, which is nice especially for level ups, but criminals may not sleep in the beds in the primary area of town, and must use beds in the slums to sleep, and these beds do not give as much condition back either. To keep this as direct and compact as possible, there's a lot of things that I know I didn't fully cover here, and if anyone has any questions, please ask and I'll do my best to answer them. Wizardry Online did a lot of really special things at a level of polish that I've never seen another MMORPG do before. And looking at the approach and the direction more online gaming and companies seem to be going for more and more, it seems as if they'll follow what has proven to be a successful formula and continue to be fearful of breaking the mold in the way that this did. And that does make me a bit doubtful that we'll see anything like this game for a very, very long time, unless we work together to take the necessary steps of preserving this incredibly unique game. My contact info is wizonrepair@gmail.com. I have also put it in the description for you. If anyone's interested in working with us to restore this game, please contact me. Whether you have knowledge that could be directly helpful, like experience debugging or reverse engineering, or just have the motivation to help us spread the word of what this game brought to the table where no other MMORPG could, in hopes that it may gain the attention and interest of those with the skills to help us restore Wizardry that much sooner for everyone to be able to play.